21 before 5, it's the second hour of today here on eNCA Channel 403. My name is William, last name Lahong. If you have just joined us, we continue with our bulletin. South Africa cannot grow without transformation, but transformation in the economy cannot happen without growth. Now, this is one of the many challenges being addressed at this year's Black Business Summit. Business and government are coming together to discuss issues around transformation and empowerment, procurement, crime and corruption, and creating space in the market for previously disadvantaged business people. Now, eNCA business anchor Rofhiwa Madzena is live to us right now and joins us from the conference. Rofhiwa, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for just giving us your time. We know that there's a lot going on where you are. The government is desperate to transform certain sectors of the economy that have the potential to unlock growth. But there is a bit of a problem in achieving that. Please take me through what that is.
Very interesting, and thank you for having me, William. We are at the Radisson Blue at OR Tambo at the Black Business Summit, obviously being hosted by the Black Business Council. And it's an annual summit, just some quick context, that looks into issues that black business face and the opportunities that can be unlocked through policy changes, regulatory environment changes, and then, of course, engagement with different stakeholders, including government, business, and others that are able to unlock opportunities within the South African economy for those who want to operate in it. But a big thing that's been discussed today is the issue of transformation. It was one of the themes that was discussed earlier this morning. And how do we achieve that? How do we open up the economic pool to have new entrants emerge as business leaders in key sectors of the economy? Well, one argument was, well, we're going to need the structural reform and the policy changes. And then the other argument, which was made by KBC Jonas, who's the chairman of MTN South Africa, is that it's great to have transformation, but you need growth to do so. But unless you have growth, you cannot have transformation, because ultimately you need the resources which come from economic growth. But let's just hear from the chairman to get his insights on what he had to say. I got to speak to him on the sidelines of the summit this morning.
I guess, it was within a context of talking about inequality. The problem is that inequality constrains growth. So you are not going to have growth if you have the levels of inequality you have. In fact, inequality feeds into populism and instability and political instability, and therefore you won't have growth. So the point, therefore, we're making is that the two needs to go together. And it's possible to do it. India does it at the moment, where people are focused on changing and increasing broader participation in the economy through employment, through ownership, etc., etc. But also education is critical in ensuring that many of the poor families are taken out of poverty and therefore are included in the economy. So it is actually not just looking at increasing the labor absorptive level of the economy, but it's also just about having a political system that understands that you cannot do transformation if the economy is not growing. Where do you get the resources to do that? But at the same time, you might have an economy growing for an elite, a small minority. You do need to have the two integrated in an agenda for the country.
Now, Rofhiwa, we understand Minister Mchunu was also at today's proceedings, and he gave an update on the plans to restore the water infrastructure. What did he unpack exactly?
So the level of disarray of our water infrastructure in South Africa has come to light over recent months with the outbreak of cholera in Hammanskraal, just an indication of how dilapidated the water and sanitation infrastructure has become in South Africa and how municipalities have let it get to the levels that it has. And then there was the Blue Drop report, which reports on the levels of safety of South Africa's water, and that painted painted a bleak picture that about 50% of water that runs through taps is actually not all that safe to drink. So obviously the Department of Water and Sanitation is now actively trying to change that particular tide. He indicated that there's a plan that is being finalized, which will be done by the end of July, a plan that details some of the projects that the department and other stakeholders will be embarking on, William, to restore the water infrastructure, but also new allocation of funding for the restoration and maintenance of that water infrastructure. He mentioned about 6 billion rand per municipality, which is an important step when it comes to changing the tide for communities like in Hammanskraal that are suffering from the cholera outbreak. He also said that they will be working closely with the private sector, which is largely at the summit in these 2 days, to get the kind of investment to ramp up the projects, but also just making sure that the burden on the Development Bank of South Africa, which by the way funds about 63% of its financing is to SOEs, is removed and given to private stakeholders that want to get involved in the restoration of key infrastructure in the country. But here's the Minister.
Even before we actually do the costing, we have money in the form of grants. They are big. We have money in the form of WIZIC, and there is also MIC, even before we approach Treasure. So it's not like we're operating in space. I was in the Eastern Cape on Monday. We told them from the 1st of July this year, all the municipalities, just for water and sanitation, you're getting 6 billion. So each and every municipality throughout the country, in all provinces, they are going to get new allocation as of July, and we need to begin to wake up in terms of accounting for each and every cent via improvement that we're talking about in infrastructure in particular.
Thank you so much for that, eNCA business anchor Rofhiwa Madzena, live to us this afternoon from the conference. We're going to move on to this now.